Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense. Hey, we managed to make it through Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1. That's pretty good. About 10, 12, 15 minutes on one verse. Right? Listen, I'm just telling you this because one of the things that we get frustrated the most about in life is when we're waiting for God. Right? We're waiting for God to move. We've said the prayer, we've asked for the prayer, and now we're waiting for Him to move. And we're waiting for Him to work. And God says, I don't do anything just goofily like I do. Everything is planned out. Everything is purposeful because it's going to touch the lives of other people. So, here we go. Chapter 2, verse 1, it says, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Xerxes, when wine was before him, I took up the wine and I gave it to the king. Now, I had not been sad in his presence. Verse 2, and the king said to me, why so sad? Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick? This is nothing but sadness of the heart. Right? Then I was very much afraid. So the king apparently notices more than we think kings notice. Somehow we think kings are oblivious to everything. But this king, he has noticed Nehemiah. Don't think for a second that this is not super practical for you and I. You know, the people around you, they notice. They know things. They know a lot more than you and I think they know. We think because people don't say anything that they're oblivious. They're not oblivious. They have lots of thoughts. They have lots of things going on in their mind, right? The enemy can use all of that. The enemy can place thoughts in your mind about things. The enemy is good at that. We know. Right? The people are paying attention to us. It's why we need to be consistent. It's why we need to have words and actions together. That we don't just talk about being a Christian, we actually are a Christian. People are noticing, and that might be how God opens up the doors. Hey, I noticed you were sad today. Hey, I noticed you were a little teary-eyed today. Hey, I noticed you were a little angry today. Hey, I noticed you were super duper excited today. What is this? Right? What's going on? Hey, I noticed that you have a glow today. I noticed that you have joy when you should be mourning. I noticed that you're mourning. All kinds of I've noticed things, right? The enemy wants you to think that people are oblivious, they're clueless, all they ever think about is themselves. They never pay attention to anything. No, they do pay attention, and they do know. Most of the time, we simply don't know what to do with that information. So we do the best Christianese thing, and we ask other people, what should we do with this information that we have? Which turns out to be really cruddy Christianese, right? We're not supposed to be gossiping and talking. We're supposed to be using these things as an opportunity. If you notice that something is wrong with somebody, they're not themselves, that is the opening that you need. God has said, listen, if somebody notices it and they say something to it, then that's a God thing most likely. Now, there are lots of people who want just information. They're just watching you for information. They think your life's going to derail, and they're waiting. They're waiting like vultures for that. But every once in a while, God's going to send you somebody who really does care, who really does notice, who really does want to be a part of your life. And these are the opportunities that you're looking for. God's going to restore an entire city and a temple. He's going to restore his people back to Jerusalem at this moment. A moment where a non-Jewish king, a pagan king, is going to take a look at a servant of God, and he's going to team up with God and not even really know it. Don't think for a second that God doesn't work still the same way. God's going to constantly be teaming up with people. We can't predetermine who those people are. God only uses these people. God only uses people who get an A on their Christian report card. No, God uses F's all the time. God uses people who aren't even trying to be Christians. Here's the rest of it, right? Nehemiah's response is one of being afraid. If you displease the king, right, then the king has the right to remove you unceremoniously, usually with death, right? King's not happy, you're gone. because you have been in the presence of the king, you got lots of information, you probably are better off not being alive, right? So he's going to get rid of you. So Nehemiah is now afraid, right? God's starting to work. Have you ever been in that? Where God's starting to move and all of a sudden you start getting afraid? You start getting afraid when the wheels, and we've been waiting so long for the wheels to turn, right? Of what God has for us. And then they start turning, and all of a sudden, things get a little messy. You've probably been there before, right? Praying for a new job, praying for your job, praying for God to do something at work, at home, at school, at play, at church, right? And all of a sudden, the wheels start turning and things get a little messy. Well, wait, that's not what I meant. What I wanted was you, God, to get rid of my boss, not get rid of me. Sometimes God starts churning things up, starts making it so the nest is a little less comfortable. Right? I've been at this job for 30 years. No way is God ever going to ask me to leave. I've been here for 30 years. I've been here for 20 years or 10 years. God is always at work. Nehemiah, though, is concerned about how God's work is going to affect him. Listen, that's where most of us are all the time. We're concerned about how God's work is going to affect us. I don't want to go talk to this person. I don't want to go be a part of this. I don't want to have to go sit through this. I don't want to have to do this. Like, how's it going to affect me? God, I know what you do. Like, again, if you need another story, you need to go to Jonah, right? Jonah has to go to Nineveh. Jonah does finally get there via a whale route. I don't highly recommend that. Right? 3 days in the whale, gets spit out, goes to Nineveh. 3-day journey across the city of Nineveh. And he finally gets done with it. He gets up on a mountain ready to see Nineveh destroyed. And he starts to throw a fit. And he says to God, I knew you were like this. I know you're compassionate. I know you're going to do this. I don't want any part of this. Right? Sometimes that's the way we are. We just don't want a part of what God is going to do. We get frustrated because we know how he's going to work. So we don't say anything. You know, sometimes people don't say anything because they don't want to be the one to have to go do it. They don't want to have to do the work. Right? So we'd rather sit, pretend like we have no idea what's going on, what God is doing, how God works, because we don't want to have to work with God. Listen, we're going to see the rest of this as this plays out. Nehemiah, right, is going from, hey, I asked God for something. God's starting to work. I'm afraid. The king has obviously responded. What's going to happen with this whole thing? Where are we going to end up? Well, we'll continue taking a look at this night later on. So let's see you next time.